Liz. I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to the season 4 premiere of Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. In today's episode, I chatted with romance author Farah Heron about her new foodie romance, Accidentally Engaged. And I helped Farah to fill out an application to be a contestant on MasterChef. Enjoy and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Sidekick Gail.
It's been a long time since we've talked. Well, not really, because you do call me every day, like a good daughter should. But you know I'm your show. And I have to say that Reader Seeks Romance is my favorite romance novel talk show on YouTube. I know you're the only one, but it's still my favorite.
Thank you.
I have a question to ask. Is anyone going to be attacked by owls in this episode?
No owl attacks.
Okay, well, I have to say, I love the games you play, the trivia. I learn a lot, and I really, really look forward to them every week. So keep it up. You're doing a great job with that.
Thanks, Gail. Your check is in the mail.
Thank you.
Hi, Farah.
Hi.
Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
It is a pleasure. So congratulations on the release of Accidentally Engaged.
Thank you.
What is Accidentally Engaged about?
So the book is about a 31-year-old millennial woman. She's kind of stuck. She's in a job she doesn't love. She's unlucky in love. She has a lot of friends, but her best friend has just moved away and she's feeling kind of empty because of that. So she's in a very relatable life funk. And her parents are very interfering in her life, and they insert themselves in every aspect of her life. And they have once again set her up with what they call a good Muslim man. She's always pushing off their setup attempts, but this time, unfortunately, the guy is really, really hot. He lives across the hall, and she finds an instant connection with him because they both really love food, and she's a bread baker. That's her hobby. So he really loves her bread. She loves to bake bread. So it's kind of like not so much an arranged marriage, but a facilitated marriage. The parents are trying to get these two kids to get married. But then she ends up becoming friends with him, and then they pretend to be engaged to enter a cooking contest together. So it's kind of it's an arranged marriage / fake engagement.
When Rena first meets Nadim, is that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She describes him as a brown Captain America because of his buff physique, which I love. I just love that. However, what I thought was interesting is she isn't immediately bowled over by his facial appearance because of his douche beard. And those are your words, not mine.
Yes, yeah.
Was that a conscious decision for her to grow in deeper physical attraction to him?
I think so, yeah. I think that the idea was to make it relatable. And attraction is more than just the way a person's face looks. Like, she's attracted to his body, but then he starts talking and she's like, oh, he's got a nice voice. And then he smiles, she's like, oh, I love that smile. So it comes in layers. And I wanted to make that realistic. I've also portrayed Rena as having a long history of relationships behind her. She's on her 13th relationship at this point, and she's been unlucky. But because of that history, I was like, she's going to be a bit of a connoisseur, right? She knows. And at no point does she ever say, I have a preference for these buff men. She actually says the opposite, that she doesn't necessarily like that physique. And I really wanted to portray her as somebody who has like a wide range of interests when it comes to what her men look like. She likes different things, and she likes a lot. And for somebody who has such a long history with relationships, I felt that was more realistic than that if she had a very narrow attraction.
In your acknowledgments,
yes,
you mentioned that Accidentally Engaged is essentially about connecting to your roots through food. Why did you choose that particular theme for your second book?
Accidentally Engaged is my second book, but I came up with the character and the idea of a cooking show romance before my first book. So it was funny, when I started writing The Chai Factor, my first book, I had already written, I think, a chapter of what eventually became Accidentally Engaged. It was nothing like it, but the character was the same. So when I started writing The Chai Factor, I realized that I needed a best friend character. So I took that character from that other book that I hadn't. So that was something that I always knew that I wanted to write, a foodie book. And I've always been really into cooking the food of my own culture. And that kind of helps me stay connected to it. So I thought that would be a great way to kind of to bring that trait into a character. It's easier too to write a book where the character has an interest that you yourself has. It's less research and all of those like shortcut things. So that was really what my thoughts were. And especially with having Nadim, giving him the same background as her, that's a connection that they have together, even though they're so completely different. They grew up in different continents and they have different, they say different words. He's got a British accent, she doesn't. Their families are different, but they have that connection of that shared background. And I really wanted to show that that shared background, whether it's through the food or not, but that shared background is stronger than all the differences they had.
In the acknowledgements, you also share that you would beg your mom to sometimes cook anything other than Indian food. So I was wondering, what is the number one thing you would bug your mom to make that wasn't Indian food?
Definitely Italian food. I was, yeah, and I'm not just saying that because you're Italian, but definitely I was a nut for pasta. My mom made a great lasagna, but really anything, macaroni, even like any pasta or pizza. I think those are the two things. I've always wanted to, I've always wanted to learn more about Italian food and cook more. But especially when I was young, it was my thing. But my mom would make Indian food every day growing up. And especially since, I was born here, and like in the 70s, there wasn't a whole lot of diversity around, and there weren't a lot of other Indian kids around. And every day I would be, and all my friends would be talking about like having like pork chops and meatloaf. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So, but then she did learn how to make pretty good Italian food just for us.
Nice. Well, if you ever want any recipes, I'd be glad to share a few with you.
So I originally first started reading romances when I was like 8, probably, the teen romances. So I can't tell you what the first one was, but I used to read there were category romances for teenagers that came out in like the 70s and 80s. There was Wildfire, and Wildfire was one of the names, and Sweet Dreams was the other name. So that was the name of the imprint, and I used to read them like mad. And I think I was 8 or 9 when I started reading them. So I count those as my first romances. They were definitely very sweet teenage category romances.
So this is the MasterChef application that I found online. List your last 3 jobs.
So writer, before that I was a youth counselor in a classroom setting, so basically a group therapist. And then before that I was a human resources manager in high fashion.
All right. Describe your style of cooking. Be specific.
My style would probably be Asian. I do make a lot of Thai food at home, Chinese food, Szechuan food, very authentic. Like we get recipes from wherever they're from, so very authentic Thai food and Szechuan and different parts of China. Or Indian food. If I'm making like home cooking, it's going to be my own home Indian food.
Okay. What are your first memories of cooking or being in the kitchen, and what led to your love of food?
First memories of cooking, watching my mom cook. She made Indian food with no measurements and would just know how much spice of this to put in. Also, she used to make our parathas and rotis and such, and she would roll out the dough and I would cook them on the stove. So I have a very, very strong memory of being quite young and learning how to make the Indian flatbreads. What are your 3 signature dishes? Definitely bread is one of my signatures. I make bread in the house all the time and everybody loves it. So, and actually not even just my family, outside people know me for my bread baking. And then I make a Thai curry called khao soy, which is a kind of a soup with curry paste and chicken or beef, and it's a favorite in the house when I'm making khao soy, so I'd call that. And then probably my third one would be my biryani. My not and again, that's not just my kids, but everybody knows that my biryani is fabulous and people want it.
Oh my God. Oh. Now, as far as breads, is there a particular bread that you would say is you own? Like, I make this bread really, really well.
Probably more than one. Definitely sourdough. I've actually hasn't been making sourdough for a while, but now I'm kind of back into it. So when I have a sourdough starter in the house, then my sourdoughs are pretty good. But other than that, I make really good hamburger buns. My challah is very good. So it's not just one.
Oh, wow. You're a threat on many levels. So Rena in the book names her starter. I believe it's a rice starter. She names Brian. Do you name your starters?
I do name my starters. And actually the one I said I have a starter right now doesn't yet have a name, because I want to cook with him a little bit longer to kind of get an idea of his mood. But all of Rena's starters in Accidentally Engaged are named after starters that I've had. So I did have a Brian before. And then she also has Sue. I used to have a Sue. And then I think she has Bob. My first starter was Bob. So
what are your strengths / secret weapons in the kitchen?
My strengths are probably improvising. And I am usually, if my mind is working, I'm usually able to just kind of take random things and make something tasty. And I know that's something that, like, without a recipe, just kind of figure something out. I know that's something that's harder for some people, that they need a more structured recipe. Like, my husband doesn't work as well. He's a very good cook, but he needs to know what he's doing. He's not as good as the improvisation. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that's my strength. The other thing that is my secret weapon, and this is something that my mom just doesn't quite wrap her head around, is my secret weapon is to literally use tools. Like I said, my mom doesn't measure things. And sometimes when I'm cooking Indian food, I don't either. But other times I will use a measuring spoon, or I will weigh the flour in my bread. And for my mother, the way my mother learned to cook, it's beyond her. She's like, oh, how do you always know? Like, how do you know when your meat is cooked? I'm like, I use a thermometer. So I feel like it's a secret weapon to use kitchen tools, because it's kind of not a lot of old school cooks didn't. So that's my secret weapon.
Right. What are your weaknesses in the kitchen?
Probably a mess. I'm not capable of cleaning as I go. So I think probably just everything being a mess, and then nothing is where it is. And I get annoyed when I open a drawer expecting to find the thing and it's not there. But I probably didn't put the thing back in the first place. So.
Got it. Last question. If you win the title of MasterChef, what would be your dream to come out of this opportunity?
I would hope that my dream would be not so much to cook even better food, but to get to eat better food. I'm imagining if you're a master chef, then people will cook for you, so to make you want to try food. So that would actually be my dream, is to be able to eat delicious food.
So access to good food.
Access to the good food, yeah.
Well, Farah, this has been so much fun to chat with you about Accidentally Engaged and food and potentially being on MasterChef. Thank you so much for spending time here with me on Reader Seeks Romance.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.